You're listening to the One Step Deeper podcast with your host, Jimmy Moore and Brittany Davis. OneStepDeeperPodcast.com.
So last week we opened a can of friggin' worms, and I have comments galore we want to do today of all the people. You guys, Brittany and I were a little concerned about this episode last week that we did. I wasn't so much concerned. I was just ready to get it over with. I was just ready to, we got to stop teasing it. We got to do it. And so if you missed last week's episode, go back, episode 26, episode 26 of the One Step Deeper podcast. Go back and watch or listen to on the podcast all about the problems of the man-made rules of Christianity. It was part one. Today we're going to conclude that, I hope, with part two. We got a lot more to say, so that's why I say I hope. But I definitely wanted to get to some of these comments. So after we introduce the show, I'll definitely read from these and let us commentate on what people said. Would you like to open the show?
Sure. OneStepDeeperPodcast.com. You can find all the episodes there. This is episode 27. As Jimmy said, we're going to be talking about the problems with man-made rules of Christianity again. This is going to be hopefully the conclusion of this. We'll see how that goes. You can find all the episodes also on Instagram, One Step Deeper Podcast there, One Step Deeper Podcast community over on Facebook, YouTube every week at 4 p.m. on Sundays, Eastern Standard Time. You can find the episodes premiere there. That's the first place you can find them. After that, all the places you find podcasts. On Monday mornings, you can find the podcast there.
With Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and Alexa, for those of you that aren't familiar with all the ways to do that. And by the way, leave us a review. We always love hearing the reviews. I haven't had a whole lot of reviews on our show. I see people do the star rating, but they haven't given us like a written out review. It takes like 5 minutes, guys, to write 3 lines. Just share the love, share the hate, just share. We don't care. That's becoming.Brittany Lee on Instagram. I'm at Living Low Carb Man on Instagram. So that's how you find us. But let's get into these. It was amazing because right after the debut last week, you were still traveling. You were coming back from your trip. And immediately, within like a half an hour, I got 2 comments like right away that were just gut-wrenching. And I was like, Brittany, look, somebody, they're responding. And it wasn't like we were expecting maybe some backlash from it, and not one single one of these comments was backlash. All of it was going, thank you. Like, you're articulating what we felt. We just thought we weren't allowed to say it out loud. Well, guess what? One Step Deeper, Jimmy and Brittany, you can say anything you want out loud. There's no judgment from us one way or the other. But let's read some of it. I want to get some real-time commentary. So first person said, every single thing you guys talked about hit home for me. Everything, especially the bit about how sex is bad, dirty, and awful. Don't do that, especially before you're married. But then you flip the switch as soon as the preacher says man and wife. My poor husband. So this is a lady that's like, she was in that conflictedness that I talked about, that how do you tell people it's dirty before marriage because that's what Christianity man-made rules say, and then suddenly, oh, now I pronounce you man and wife, and you're supposed to just go have fun. So that was kind of cool, and I bet that's the experience of a lot of people. That some of the trepidation about the first time with their spouse, if they saved themselves for the one, was disappointing because it's like, this feels weird, dirty.
Right, exactly. And super awkward and all those feelings. And you're like, I've been holding out for this and waiting. And then this is what this is it. You know what I'm saying? And like, yeah, I was not one of those people. I didn't wait. But like, I look back and all the people that were my peers that did wait, you know, they all kind of had that same similar experience of, yeah, they had waited for so long and here they are in marriage. And now they're just like, this feels weird. It's awkward. It's not, my brain is still like, this isn't allowed. This is dirty. This is bad. I'm not supposed to be doing this. And like, that breaks my heart because as someone who's been very happily married for 10 years, like that's a huge part of our marriage. It's not the only part. That's such a huge part of marriage. And so to like make it in, it's, you know, and we touched on this last week when it comes to purity, like, you have to talk about multiple layers of it. You can't just go, don't do that. That's bad. That's horrible. Like, explain why. Explain why perhaps waiting could be beneficial to a relationship.
Well, and I did some investigation into like married couples and sex life, and I found a statistic that was so shocking to me when I found it. 1 in 4 couples after the first year never have sex again. 1 in 4. That is a huge number. Now, those of you that have a very healthy sex life in your marriage, Brittany included, it's like, that's shocking to you. But people are okay with that. And I think it comes back, at least the religious ones that save themselves for the one, I think it comes back to that negative mindset. Like, think about it. From the time they're of age, girls, probably sooner than the boys, get this talk once you start your period and all that stuff. It's like they get the talk and then it's just, oh, you got to save yourself for the one. Oh, it's purity. And so you've got maybe a decade and a half before you take this plunge. And it's been so firmly ingrained in you as a truism that sex is dirty, sex is bad, sex is dirty, sex is bad, dirty, sex is bad, that when it comes time that it's no longer dirty, which doesn't make any damn sense to me at all. It's either dirty or it's not dirty.
Right. Well,
this context is dirty. This context is not dirty.
Exactly. And like, let's take it like one step deeper. I don't know about, you know, men and what they're taught at that age, but I was taught immediately. I mean, like pre-starting my period, immediately that my body would cause somebody to fall. Like my body, my skin could be harmful to somebody if they saw me. And so I have to cover up and keep myself covered up because that would cause a man to fall. First of all, that's disgusting. Can we just address the men? Like, can we talk to the men and say, hey, keep your eyes to yourself, maybe keep your thoughts, like, no, like clean that up?
Well, and we talked about that last week. And then within guys, you're literally fighting biology. Guys, we would not have survived as a human race if guys didn't find girls highly attractive and want to mate with them. That's how we're wired. I think that's how God created us. Right. So it's like, but you're right, like that's never taught. And this is another dereliction because of the man-made rules. They just say, girls don't, guys don't, have fun. And it's like, no. Don't, because ... Here's what you can do, and instead, in the meantime, because we know you're going to have those urges, ... I never got that.
No.
In the Christian church, they said as little about sex as they possibly could.
Yeah, exactly. Like you couldn't even, you know what I'm saying? Like you couldn't, you had to whisper it if it was talked about. Most of the time, it wasn't even talked about.
I had a youth pastor. He would call it whoopee.
Gentlemen, where specifically will your wife say is the weirdest place she's ever gotten the urge to make whoopee? The weirdest place. Bill?
In the bathroom sink.
Because of so when your parents do whoopee or you just say do it, and it's like, all right, that's even creepier than sex.
But that's even creepier. But like that's another level of, in my opinion, kind of touching on what I talked about last week, how purity culture is toxic to sexual abuse, because I was afraid to say out loud what was happening to me because it was dirty and it was wrong. Right. I don't want to spend this whole episode kind of revamping what we did last time, but I had to say that one again.
But that was a good comment we got on YouTube.
It was amazing, yes.
Another comment, and this one was a little longer, from Anna. I grew up in a Christian home, was taught all of these things that you guys talked about. I was sexually abused from the age of 3 to 12. So I already felt like I was used goods, and I got pregnant at 17 by a 33-year-old. I married young because it was the right thing to do, make an honest woman, all the little things. and spent 20 years in an abusive marriage because I felt unworthy. I was no longer a virgin when we got married, and therefore God, I felt, couldn't do anything with my life. The purity movement was greatly flawed. It sends a false narrative to young kids that if you have sex before marriage, then you have already failed, and then you'll never find the one because you're bad. My God, like, look at the psychological religious trauma, like you coined it last week. Look at that. That one broke my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had gotten that same comment, and I was just broken for her. Broken that was what had happened, that through her trauma that she had went through, sexual abuse, she wasn't comforted. She wasn't, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. She was, oh, you're dirty.
Yeah.
You're dirty because you're with it. And I had that. I felt dirty for what happened to me.
And look what happened to you. Look what happened to Anna. Like, your own mind, because you had been so ingrained with this man-made rules of Christianity that you now are responsible for what happened to you.
Yeah.
And I was damaged goods and God could use me no more. And I'm thinking, read the Bible? There's a lot of like reprobates in the Bible that God used later on despite their sin. And in this case, you and Anna, you didn't do anything wrong. You had something perpetrated on you that was out of your control, and yet guilt remained.
Right. Well, and like another side of this is disgusting. Like, ugh, I feel gross saying it out loud. When it came out what happened to me, Christians didn't have the answer. They didn't know what to say or what to do. And so they were like, well, God will use it for your good.
Yeah.
That's what I say to that.
And here's the other unspoken thing. Like, that creates problems once you are married.
Yes.
Of all the memories. And I don't want to get graphic or anything, but people have of things and they start spontaneously being scared, spontaneously crying. And, you know, you have to have a spouse that's totally understanding
Yes.
what your wife went through. I suppose it could have happened to the husband as well and vice versa. But like, those are difficult things that don't just happen in the moment. Don't just happen as like the church taught these things. They linger. And this poor woman took her 2 decades, and now she's one of our fans on YouTube. Anna, we appreciate you watching so faithfully on YouTube, comments often, and so thank you for that. She was very vulnerable to share all of that, but look how much of her life she just wasted away, all because of man-made rules of Christianity.
Right. And you know, that just breaks my heart. And that's why we're talking about what we're talking about today. Like, honestly, last week I was so nervous to do the episode. And after these comments just kept piling in, I'm like, yes, this is exactly what we meant. This is exactly what Jimmy and I have been talking about. And like, getting into what we're going to talk about this week, it's going to get, if it's even possible, it's going to get even more in your face this week.
Guys, because of your response, because of all these responses, Brittany and I are already thinking about how we can do this same kind of treatment. This was always our goal with this show, was to go one step deeper. We didn't want it to be heavy every week. I throw in comedy every once in a while. We have fun on the show, but we want to address real topics. So we're already posseing on what those other topics could be. I don't think any of them will have quite the passion of the man-made rules of Christianity, but we do want to. So if you have suggestions, please leave in the comments or write to us on our Instagram. We would love it. But Joshua, speaking of Instagram, wrote this. He said about his man-made rules of Christianity, I thought I always had to be hard on myself. Beating myself up held me back. So he beat himself up because the man-made rules said, you can do this, but you can't do that. You can do this, you can't do that. You can do this, you can't do that. And so, yes, you are definitely a rules follower. I was thinking about you when I read Joshua's comment, because you, and I was too, by the way. I was Mr. Perfect Christian. I'm going to do exactly what the Bible, wasn't the Bible, but the Bible said I should be doing. And I got bit in the butt by some of those man-made rules.
Yes, yeah, that whole mindset of you have to be hard on yourself and you're not perfect. And so, yeah, I struggle with perfectionism. That's definitely something that has come out in the show before. But a lot of that perfectionism, yes, came out through childhood trauma, but it also came out through, you know, my parents pushing me, you have to
Yeah.
be perfect or you're less than. But it also came within church when I would get an escape from home life and the perfectionist that was demanded from me there. I would then go to my solace, which was church as a child, and they would tell me the same thing, just in a little bit better light. And, oh no, you have to be perfect or you're going to hell. And, I mean, what does that do to a person?
Keto Chow is a customizable shake mix that is also perfect for cooking and baking, giving you simple, nutritionally perfect meal options. Keto Chow. Make keto easy. Discover your favorite flavor at jimmylovesketochow.com.
So it's so funny. Our stories are so similar, and we were born 20 years apart. Because when I was in the youth group, that was my respite away from my abuser, and I enjoyed it. But then, yeah, they were reinforcing all this kind of man-made Christian bullshittery. That again, yeah, did not serve me well in my life. I'm picking up pieces of some of the ramifications of that. Here we are decades later in my life. I'm good though, by the way, guys. I'm really good in my life right now. Brittany knows a lot about what's happening in my life, but it's good. I've had some tough times in the last couple of years, but it's good now. But it's because I've worked through a lot of the mental games of overcoming the religious gaslighting, the trauma associated with Christianity and the man-made rules. So, whoo, yes, I mean it, and we're gonna hit in those here in a minute. I saved the biggest one for last because Heidi, girl, Brittany and I both read your story, and I don't know if I could read the whole thing because it's heavy, but let's just say, guys, Heidi got why we did this last week. I want to try to skim it because I don't want to, it's very long. It's like 3 pages worth. But she said, guys, I love the podcast. I grew up Catholic. My husband cheated on me after 22 plus years of marriage, and he left me. The church says our marriage was valid. Therefore, I could no longer take communion. I could no longer engage in the activities of the Catholic Church. And being with my current husband, who she remarried, the guy left her. It's like she remarried. She's now in sin. And she said, excuse me, but what the fuck? I left the church right then and there forever. I still believe in God, but I no longer identify with any formal religion due to this hypocrisy. And we talked about the heavy hypocrisy last week. Then she went on to talk about how she had childhood trauma, sexual nature, that she had weird beliefs about sex because of some of that. Again, like Anna was talking about in hers. She said, my original marriage was validated, and unfortunately, they were very judgy. And this is something we didn't get into last week that was on our little list of things to talk about. The judginess. Where was that one? There was something you had down here that we're following loosely a script of things that we were going to talk about. But judgmentalness, like anyone with a compassionate heart for a human being would hear Heidi's story and go, the man left her. Why are you ostracizing her? That's like blaming the rape victim.
Yep. Yeah, my mom went through this, when my mom was being abused, and my mom was abused for a lot of years by the same man who abused me, just in a different way. Yeah. And so she stayed within that. There was multiple layers there, but definitely there was a religious layer there of staying in that because, this is a sin. It's a sin if I get a divorce. And this is where my idea of sin has really, transformed. And I spoke on this a little bit last week with where I am in my faith. It's complicated. Like that's it. It's complicated. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
That's what we need on Facebook. Instead of like relationship status, it's complicated. We need religious status. It's complicated.
It's complicated. Yeah, it's complicated. But when it comes to sin, my thoughts when I am there in that, okay, today I believe. When I think about sin, it's not so much about the law. It's not about breaking a law. It's about sin is what is harmful to our bodies or harmful to another person. And so when I think about all of these stories with people who are getting a divorce and the divorce is the sin, what if that's not the truth? What if the sin is within the hurt that the opposite person did? And you need to separate yourself from that.
Yeah.
Like, they hurt you past the point that you should have been hurt. They cheated or whatever. You have to separate from that. And it doesn't make it sinful. If anything, I think, yay, the sin is in the person who hurt the person. That's where the sin is.
And look how many people stay in a bad marriage because of that kind of duty to not sin, number one, to not go against what God wants, because we know God put you together. God wouldn't want to break you up and cause anyone to asunder, or whatever that bullshit line was they always put in there. Yes, I'm jaded a little bit. And so you have those people that are stuck in those kind of relationships artificially. Like,
Right.
anybody with rational thinking, anybody that's thinking common sense, is thinking, I don't want to be hurting anymore, would get out. But then people stay in years, decades, longer than they need to.
It really just goes into the fear tactics of Christianity. If you do such and such, you're going to hell. Or if you do such and such, you're a terrible, horrible person. And it's heartbreaking to watch that and to be on the outside of it for once. And yes.
Last week we talked about the childless couples, because they get married. The expectation is they have children, and then there's all these celebrating mothers, celebrating fathers, celebrating kids, and so they're ostracized. You know who the most ostracized is? It's not the single person, because there's still hope and Jesus, they're still pure. It's the divorced person. If somebody's divorced, it's almost like they have a scarlet letter on them, that they're plagued. I remember like reading in the Old Testament how they would treat them like lepers. And it's like, why? Because they chose to get out of maybe a bad situation. Like, to me, the lack of empathy, which God is love, that was kind of a big thing when I was a kid. They pushed it hard. A loving God can't tell Anna that she's welcome back in the church and take communion and art. A loving God would welcome her back with open arms. So why did the Catholic Church shun her? And it goes back to, it was man-made rules that they made up that said, you're the problem. You're still married in our eyes. So therefore, if you're with another man, you're cheating on your original husband, even though he's the one that left you after 22 and a half years. See, I got you back in. I'm righteously indignant for you here today, because I think what he did to you was horrible. But what the Catholic Church did to you was 10 times worse.
Yes, absolutely. And like, this is where my faith shakes. Like, if anybody had that question, like, why are you questioning, Brittany, what you grew up in? This is where it is. Because the God that is taught in religious circles, okay? Like, y'all hear me out. Don't come at me, all right? The God that is taught in religious circles is the definition of an abusive father / narcissist.
Yes.
Literally. If you really take a moment and step on the outside of it, don't get upset, don't be offended, just listen to me. The God that is taught.
Yeah, think it through what she's saying. Keep going.
The God that is taught of, oh, you got married now, that's your too bad. So, whatever, deal with it. That's your pain. Oh, well, like, ugh. And, when you think about, like, the story of Noah, like this, y'all, I'm so sorry. The story of Noah, where, I am God. All of you guys are terrible, horrible people. I'm going to destroy all of you. But we're going to save one of you. We're going to save one of you. And like, if you really just stop and think of the things that we've been taught, you're like, ooh, like God created us. And then there's this idea that God created man. And the only way that we can spend, as a father, he's our father, right? Within Christianity, they teach that God the Father. Yeah. Your father created you. And now you have to prove to him that you love him in order to be with him.
In his image, that's the other one too. It's like he made little versions of God.
Right, in his image. And that's another thing we're told that. Go ahead.
And in fact, Adam and Eve were perfect. So they really were like God in his image, just in human form. They were sinless.
And if we're made in his image, and Adam was a boy and Eve was a girl, okay, so I'll leave it there.
It's a they, them?
Yes. Oh gosh, that was like way out there for a lot of people.
He, her, he, him, but they, them, to use the modern vernacular.
Yes. So like, this is where my faith shakes. That when I look in.
Told you we were going to shake things up today, guys. We're going in. So.
Yes. Today is a lot tougher than last week. But like, this is where my faith shakes. The idea of who God was taught to me as versus who I view God as, like who I see Jesus as. And I think there's a big backlash right now. If you follow anything online, there's like, oh, the church is all millennials. They're not going to church and what's happening and they're falling away. No, the problem is you told us, the church, you told us to follow Jesus. And we did. We followed him out the door. Because we didn't see this Jesus that you taught us as children. We didn't see him within the church. And so we've started to walk away. And this is where anybody that I've talked to who's deconstructing Christianity is where I am. And some varying level of whether they believe nothing or they're agnostic, they believe in something bigger, but they can't believe in this God that you told us. Or, complete atheist. Like, it's, all of us are somewhere in this path because we looked at Jesus and who you told us Jesus was and his calm and his peace and his understanding and his compassion for people who were not like him. The compassion that he gave. He walked with people who were lesser than him. And he walked with those people. We want to be like that. And we don't see that within the church. And that's why I said, if you really stop and think about it, the God that church teaches is like an abusive father, and it's not okay. And us millennials or whoever you want to say, I don't think it's just millennials at this point. I think it's across the board. People are walking away because they see the truth, or either they're so hurt by your truth, the church's truth, that they're like, I don't want anything to do with that.
Well, I think what happened, and I'm going to go back to the baby boomers, which is my mom and dad's generation, Gen X, my generation, and then millennials getting dumped on. To me, it started in baby boomer. I think after World War II, which the greatest generation, they were heavily teaching all the right things about God and living in living godly, living Christian. But I think after World War II, and then like all the consumerism that started happening, and we slowly started moving away from that culturally. No more prayer in schools, no more kind of this, that some of that started to fade away because it seeped into the church. So baby boomers, my dad and mom's generation, they didn't really pay much attention to all the spiritual nature. That's when the hypocrisy, it's my theory, I'm just putting it out there. That's when I think the hypocrisy started coming into these man-made rules. Well, spare the rod, spoil the child, my dad always said, and we talked about that last week. It was an out of context thing, but it served his purpose. And then I actually got taught that in that Generation X. Now, I thankfully haven't had any kids that I could pass on nonsense to, but I believed a lot of the things that were kind of instilled into me. And so then I'm the age of where your generation would be my kid. And so it's like, it's so funny that everybody points at the millennials, but let's go back to the baby boomers. I think that's where it really all started to break down.
Yeah, that's definitely like a whole other episode one day of just this idea of all the different generations. But like, I really struggle with millennials getting they're lazy, or they're this, they're this. Well, here's the thing. Gen X told us we could do whatever we wanted to do. And so we took that as truth. Like, yeah, we can do whatever we want to do. And we took it as, you know what, we're going to get online and we're going to be successful on social media, working 4 to 10 hours a week versus you work. I'm not you in general. I'm just talking about other generations have worked 50, 60, 70 hours in order to be successful. And the millennials got it. We were like, oh, we don't want that life. We don't want to live like that. That's too many hours. I would rather live this life.
Hey guys, you know I'm all about healthy nutrition, and I have a brand new product I want to tell you about called Athletic Greens. This is not just a multivitamin. It has 75 essential elements that you want to have in your diet, from probiotics to greens to digestive enzymes to prebiotics. There's so many things that they pack into the Athletic Greens. The main reason why I love them is it puts it all in one place. Like literally you'd have to a la carte buy all of these different supplements, and they do it all in one package. So if you go to athleticgreens.com/Jimmy, and you can get a special discount if you go there, and the discount is you get a free 1-year supply of their vitamin D as well as some of their travel packs. Go check it out, you guys. athleticgreens.com/. In college, I worked 80 hours a week doing 2 jobs and 20 hours of school because I was a hard-ass worker. You and I know why I was that way, because my trauma, I was trying to overcome stuff. And I'm fighting that still at 49, still fighting it. But I like my work ethic from time to time. It does come in handy. But yeah, so that was another one that... And then one other that I think we missed last week on the original list, and now I want to hit some of the ones you and I talked about for this week. You must go to church. What is so magical? I know the Christians will all say, well, don't give up the gathering of the believers. I don't know about you, but when I go into a modern Christian church, and it's not all of them, if you got a church that you love, please keep going and God bless you. Yes. But I go into modern churches and it feels artificial, it feels forced. I don't feel close to God in a church. Now, church pastors, you got to ask yourself the question, if I'm feeling that, and I'm still identifying as a Christian, I haven't given that up. If I'm feeling that, how do you think some of your members that haven't been in a while are feeling? How do you think that some of them that are there only because it's the right thing to do to go through the motions of Sunday and Wednesday and being there every time the church was open? What is it about church attendance that's so important? Of course, COVID kind of messed everything up because everybody went online. I still enjoy watching. Oh, you did that too? Oh, money. Yeah. So, I enjoy watching sermons online on Sundays if I choose to watch a sermon. And of course, all of them are on demand on podcasts now, so I can listen on Wednesday if I want to. Don't have to wait till Sunday morning. And plus, who made the rule you got to go to church on Sunday morning? I think as long as you're like commiserating with God, there's no. Is there a rule? Is that a man-made rule? I know it's the day of rest and we're supposed to honor God, but I think you can choose what day that is. I don't think it was a literal Sunday has to be the day.
Did Jesus go to church? Like, that's always my comeback, is when they're like, Christian equals Christ-like. Christ. Let's look at him. Did he go to church?
Christians would say he is the church. He is the embodiment. That's what Christians would say. Jesus is the embodiment of that.
Well, then we should do the same.
Yeah. Be like Jesus and embody the church within.
Take it where you go. Why? Okay, so I pulled out of the church several years ago, even before I went through deconstruction, like way before. I pulled out of the church because I had literally planted a church. Like, I mean, I started it from a living room, was in a church plant. Yeah. I was so excited and so ready. And the name, I won't, name drops anything, but like the name of the church had meant so much, and like we were a part of that. My husband was a part of it, and we're like, we were pumped because we had been hurt by church after church after church, and we're like, cool, we're at the beginning of this. This can happen. And the more we got into it, the more I was like, this is the same thing. This is the same thing. And it was all this push of you have to come, except we didn't have a children's ministry. And so I would get up, and to get all 5 of us dressed, it takes a solid 2 to 2.5 hours, plus the 15-minute drive, that hour and a half in the service. And there was no child service. So I would then take my own children out of the service because they were disrupted to everybody else. And then I would go home. And logic was just like, why am I'm wasting my time to go here when I can stay in my PJs, my kids can sleep in, and I can listen to somebody online,
Yes.
or I can read for myself and learn for myself. And so, like, logic does not play into, and I understand, the Bible verse that say, do not forsake the assembling. I can assemble with my children and my husband at home.
Well, and I think the 21st century has changed the definition of assemble. Look, we are talking over the internet right now, doing the, we're only 2 hours apart drive, but still 150, 200 miles, whatever it is away that we are from one another, doing a podcast. Like, the technology is there to connect us. So why are we stuck in, again, man-made rules, that you have to be in some building that smells like dirt? Some buildings can be dusty because they're like old churches, but yeah, and you wrote down here about the must go to church. It reinforces group mindset and beliefs that may or may not be sound.
Yeah, and we've talked about this on previous episodes, that idea that you connect yourself with someone, something, some group to reinforce your own stuff. And so that's why we have a million different denominations, because one person's like, well, I don't really believe in that, so I'm going to go over here. Well, I don't really believe in that, so I'm going to go over here. And that's why we have all these denominations, and it's just like, pick which one you want, which one you most believe like. Are you Methodist? Are you Catholic? Are you Baptist? Are you
sprinkled or dunked? And yeah, talking about baptism.
Yes, exactly. Are you pushed all the way under? You get some sprinkles. Like, what are you? What do you believe in? And it's all like different interpretations of the Bible. But at the end of the day, call it what it is. It's all the same thing. I was raised in a Methodist church, and it was way different from the Baptist church I started going to. And then I started going to a non-denominational church. And then after non-denominational church, I just couldn't go back to anything else. And then now I'm unchurched and a sinner.
Well, and I don't know about you, but do you feel more at peace not going to church?
Yes.
That's sacrilege. I'm sorry, Christians. I have to say it out loud because you know what I'm talking about. Now, Christians would say, well, if you're away from the church, you get used to it and thus it becomes comfortable. Stop and think why it's comfortable. Maybe some of this man-made nonsense around Christianity, people get away from it, and it's getting away from an abuser. And so there's relief from the abuse. Like, I've never thought of it that way until just now. It just popped in my head of, that's why people feel better. Now, again, if you got a church you love, please keep going. Please tell me about it. I want to hear all about your wonderful church. My experience and the observations that I see with the modern day Christian church is the hypocrisy. People are just tired of it and they're fleeing. I have a feeling that churches are just going to keep dying. Now, some of it's their own fault. Some of it's like situation in the world of the past year and a half. But I just don't think, unless they recognize the things we're talking about on this podcast this week and last week, you got to resolve this stuff. Like, religious people, Christians, stand up for what you really are about.
Yeah.
Because what we're talking about here is real life. This is stuff that nobody has the guts to tell you because it's taboo to talk about this. And I don't care. I've been at this game a long time, and you don't care because you threw everything out 3 years ago and are still reconstructing a lot of parts of your life. I love what you wrote, by the way. You go from Sunday morning saint to Monday morning ain't. I loved that phrase. We didn't really say that, but I guess that you came to your mind and you wrote it down.
Yes, yeah, I've heard it somewhere that, Sunday morning we're all good and Monday morning you just ain't. I read something on Instagram, like preparing for this one, and I was like, oh gosh, that one hurt. I'm telling you, finding the deconstructionists on Instagram and TikTok, they be messing you up, man. Like, oh, whoa. Okay, yes. All right, so it's from About Doubt over on Instagram. It says, doubt pushed me overboard, outside the lines and neat edges of my childhood faith. I craved certainty, but found only holy mystery. I wanted answers, but found a God who seemed to enjoy questions. Sacred confusion, water in the wilderness, life in the tension, further from certainty, but closer to Jesus. And I was like, that's literally it. That is like definition of what I felt in the church. Anytime I had a question, it was shoved down. And when I don't have answers, I get anxious. I struggle with anxiety. I always have. That's childhood wrapped in a anxiety bow for you. But I needed a concrete answer within my faith for these questions that I had. And you would think they would be able to give me some answers, but it was always just shoved down and said, oh, well, that's just the way it is. That's just how it's going to be. You just have to have faith. You just have to. And that caused so much more anxiety and so much more stress. And so going back to what you're saying, removing myself from that and creating or finding my own answers and like really just giving up. Like if you want to know what it is, I gave up on the church. I gave up trying to find answers for who God was and who Jesus was, and I found them myself.
They gave up on you a long time ago.
Yes, absolutely. From the moment I opened my mouth to say I have been through trauma, I have had childhood trauma, I have had sexual trauma, from that moment I have felt ostracized from the church because they didn't know how to handle me.
And see, I know a lot of them aren't equipped to deal with psychological and trauma and things like. I honestly believe, and it's kind of sacrilege to say this, but again, Christian church, listen to what we're saying, because I think this is a good idea. Have a counselor who is professionally trained in helping people through head stuff. Have one on hand, because a lot of people that come to churches, they're hurt. They're hurt from traumas of some kind. And so if you don't have a staff of counselors, and let me get this out the way, because I know some people are going to at me. Oh, well, we need Christian counselors to only make it biblical. And again, okay, but biblical pastor kind of counselors, they're not trained in counseling and therapy and how to work people through. I think there's a hybrid you could do between someone who believes in God, is a Christian, and has all the skills of a trained, licensed therapist. And I think what?
You have brought up such, yes, that would be such an answer. To think about how the church has posed themselves, at least some of the churches I've been in. Oh, we want to bring in the lost and the hurt and the broken. They are lost and they are hurt and they are broken. We can't just say, here's God and he'll fix it all. Like, you have to give tactical things like a counselor to help with that.
But that's what they do. They come in, and then when they share their hurts, well, Jesus is the great physician, and so you should just definitely put your trust in him. He will heal all. To me, that's just kind of I don't give a shit what your problem is. I'm just going to all over you the religious nonsense, and you're just going to have to suck it up. No wonder people feel hurt by the church. No wonder they run in droves, because it's one thing to share your hurt and be vulnerable like that. But then to be told, well, we talked about this last week, just trust God more. He'll take care of it. Or like your grandma, I just feel like everything's going to work out in the end, that she always said to you. Or, well, you just need to trust in God more. We talked about that one as well. It's just, to me, I think the church has been derelict. I don't think God is happy that hurt people are not getting the help that they need. Now, I'm not saying that every single church needs to become this therapy session, just constantly therapizing, but it may not be a bad idea to have on hand for those really bad cases.
Why not? Why not? Is that not what church is supposed to be? A place for you to find hope and joy and passion and to be free from your sadness and from your bondage. Is that not what church is supposed to be? That's what I taught. I was taught what church was supposed to be, but I didn't get that. I didn't get freedom and hope and joy. I got shame and more hurt and more faith shit covering is what I got. You should just have faith.
You guys tried the Paleo Valley beef sticks? These beef sticks are 100% grass-fed and grass-finished. And many of the grass-fed beef sticks on the market today are actually finished with grains. They use beef sourced from small domestic farms in the United States. They only use real organic spices to flavor the beef sticks versus all the conventional spices sprayed with pesticides and other natural flavors from GMO. They also ferment the sticks, which creates naturally occurring probiotics, all great for your gut health. And best of all, they taste amazing. Again, they're Paleo Valley, my favorite beef stick on the market today. Go check them out, you guys. PaleoValley.com. Use the coupon code Jimmy at checkout for 15% off your first order. Paleo Valley beef sticks. Yeah, and therein lies the problem. I think the church has done a decent job of when people are feeling down and bad and hurting, they go there. Where they've been derelict is once they're there, the answer is not the answer. Now, they say the answer, referring to Jesus, but they don't give real life, hey, I see you as a human. I see the hurt. Now, I'm not saying, oh, please, if you're a Christian and you're in a good church where you got a need and people are coming to your rescue financially, giving you the love and the therapy and the things you need, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I have seen it happen in churches that I've been a part of. But the norm is you've got to hurt, trust Jesus more, give it to him, he'll heal all, you just need to blah, blah, blah. And I don't think that serves any good purpose. I mean, maybe it would be wonderful to have licensed therapists on hand, but I think they'd be working nonstop. Plus, you kind of come into they have to get paid somehow, and do you pay them through the tithes that come in through the church, or would they pay some fee it'd be a little logistical stuff, but I think it would be incredible, and people would actually be more receptive to the gospel if they felt like they were healing some of the parts of their hurt from the past, even hurt from churches in the past, like you and me have been hurt by the churches in the past. It might actually grow Christianity. Like, I feel like we're tapping into something here that this is what you and I have been talking about the last 2 weeks is there's a lot of hurt people out there that aren't getting help. And if they're not getting help from you, they're going to seek it elsewhere. And then the church dies.
Yes. I think there is a local church here that does have a staff, not just one, but a staff of Christian counselors. I'm okay with Christian counselors. I'm okay with them as long as they are certified counselors and certified mental health specialist.
Most are not. Most are certified in a Christian counseling, but they don't have training in therapy, which licensed therapists would have. So I agree with you. I think that's wonderful.
And personally, like, I would be more willing to go to a physical church, pay tithes, do all of the things, the ABC, if I knew that people off the street who were hurting and broken and needed help had access to therapy, had free access to therapy. I would 100% spend as much money as I could to make that a thing.
How many churches do like outreach programs trying to reach people? Can you imagine if you open it up to the community, you got hurt in your past that you just don't really know how to handle it? Come on in. We got free counselors that are licensed therapists. We would love to help you, love on you, be Jesus to you. You could say it in that many words. Do you know people that if we got help would join that church? And how much money is spent on potluck dinners and Ferris wheel on the grounds for the kids and trying to attack, and then trunk or treat around Halloween and all these things that are a lot of money spent on. Counselors offer it to the community and watch what happens.
It goes back to kind of what we said last week of that it's a temporary release. Like when they have these trunk or treats or these things, it's a temporary to make you feel better. Okay, here's your thing. And maybe it does kind of shove it down a little bit. Maybe it does kind of, if I go to a trunk or treat with my kids, I'm feeling happy for that hour. But why can we not give tactical advice on, for example, the only answer I've ever gotten when it came to anxiety and depression from the church is you don't trust Jesus enough. That is the absolute only response I have ever gotten. Instead, if someone had an on staff, now I'm in a place where I can afford therapy right now. But for out of 28 years of my life, 27 of them, I couldn't afford therapy, And so, and like, let's be honest, like I really can only afford it because I have insurance. Like it's still, therapy is extremely expensive. And so the people who don't have the money for therapy, giving them that option of come here instead of, I would rather give someone therapy than, let's have candy. That goes a whole nother level that I have with the church, but whatever. Oh gosh. We're supposed to be taking care of our bodies. Here's candy. You're a temple. You're a temple. Don't drink alcohol. You're a temple. Don't smoke. Here's your candy. Ugh. Sorry.
No. We hit gluttony last week. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back just 2 years ago in my life. I went to the local church and told them about a thing I was going through, the really difficult thing I was going through. I'm just going to say it. I'm tired of playing games. I left my wife. And I told them, and I got one call on a voicemail. Hey, heard you're going through marital issues. Can we help? I called back. Never heard back. So here's somebody pouring their heart out to the church. And I remember that church for a little while. And yes, we're divorced now. And so like I got no help from the church. This woman right here was more the church to me than anybody.
Same.
Disgusting.
Yeah. Same. And like you and I, and the conversations that you and I have had, and how this freaking podcast was born was out of you and me having so much hurt. And the church was tied into that with our hurt. And we found solace in each other, and we've therapied each other. And anytime I'm down, you're there, or you're down, I'm there. And like, we've just had this conversation where we tell each other all of these things, and we take it one step deeper. And that's something that the church is missing, because the church to me is so surface level. They don't want to go deeper because it's too much. It's too much. And here you and I are begging, please, I want help. I'm sure there was a time where you wanted so much help within your marriage, and you were like crying out for, please, somebody help me. I don't know what to do here. And it just got to the point where no one was helping. No one was giving you answers. The church was just gaslighting you. So further and further and further it went until there was no way out.
Nobody cared because you're married, and so therefore everything's okay. Like, and they would pay the lip service to, well, if you're having trouble, come see us. And it's like, I did. Yeah. And what happened? Like, I literally never heard back anything. Am I supposed to harangue them over and over for help? I feel like I cried out for help. I got a call back, but I missed the call, left a message. I'm not trying to blame the church, but if people fall through the cracks, and I was a longtime member of that church for like almost 15, 20 years. It's not like I was just somebody they didn't know. I was a known entity there. Anyway, I still have hurt from that. And then another church where the pastor, and I gave money and was really good to that church, hasn't said one word to me since I left. And to me, like, that's the kind of stuff. And we're going long again. I'm trying to end this today, but I don't know. I'll tell you what, guys. We're going to go ahead and go over a little bit on Instagram. If you're watching this, you're going to have to go to YouTube to watch the last little bit. I'm not stopping the recording, but on Instagram, I can only put an hour. So you'll get about an hour worth on Instagram, or I think I can put the whole thing on Facebook, and then definitely on YouTube. So Instagram people, go watch it on YouTube, the rest of it. But we're going to keep talking until we finish. I don't want to stop the flow of because we still have more to talk about. And for listening on the podcast, sorry, I got emotional because that's been burdening me. And it's part of why I wanted to bring up this Man-Made Rules of Christianity thing. Is the church hurt me the last 2 years in the hardest thing I ever went through in my life. Fuck you. I needed you. Yeah. You abandoned me. Did God abandon me? No. I still feel his presence, but it's because I have that relationship But the people that he has called to be his servants, I'm sorry, you failed. Not all churches. I get it. I get it. You love your church. You love your pastor. They're wonderful. They're shepherd. Blah, blah, blah. Good. I'm glad they didn't fail you. They fucking failed Jimmy Moore.
Yes.
I'm just at a loss for words. Keep talking.
Yeah. So the last year, like I've been there and I've watched everything that I've literally, I'm not priding myself here, but I was the church for you. You were the church for me, because I was hurt on the same level in a different way that you have been by the church. Just reaching out and begging, please, I'm looking for help here. I need you. I need you to be what you told me you are.
Yeah.
And you weren't. And you let me down. Time and time and time and time again. I have been let down and let down and let down. And then that's when people go, well, that's because the church are people and the people are going to let you down. Okay, exactly. That's my point. That's why I left. Because they're continuing to let me down, let me down, let me down. And on the days where I can find myself to separate myself from what the church taught me, and I can see the Jesus that I see, and when I can believe, when I can bring myself to believe, I attach myself to that and go, you know what? This is it. This is where I find solace. This is where I find peace and love and understanding and compassion, and not judgment and fear and complete and total abandonment, which is what you went through. Complete and total abandonment. And that is not what I was told the church was. And yeah, I'm right there with you of fuck you guys. I am sad for you to watch what you have gone through the last 2 years, and within friendships and church and everything else that has just walked away, because how dare you?
And family.
Yeah, family. Yeah. Family that was tied up in the church.
All of it is tied together to what we've been talking about these last 2 weeks. And I won't apologize for being emotional. That was some heavy shit, guys. Like Brittany will tell you, because she's been there every step of the way. I could not have been more hurt by an entity than I was the Christian church. And while I still believe in God, it shook me. Like, listen, you've gone through stuff that's shaken you. Brittany's articulated it. I'm articulating it now. If the Christian church hurts people, they're not being very, as you said, Christ-like, Christian. What's the point, Christian church? Like, get your act together. And again, you got a great church, you got a great congregation. Good for you. Tell me about it. I would love to hear your stories. Please write them in the comments. I want to hear how amazing your church is and how they bring in people that are traumatized from their past and how they help heal them and bring them in and raise them up in the spirit and admonition of the Lord. But my personal experience and my observations is most churches aren't doing that.
It's like when you say not all churches, it's just like saying not all men. We know that it's not all men. We know that it's not all churches, but the problem is so many are. You still have to keep your eyes open and eyes peeled and be afraid and be scared. Like, yes, we get it. It's not all churches, but at the same time, how do you know which ones until you're in a situation where you're already hurt? How do you know? You don't. And it's freaking scary. And it's scary to get to the point that you and I have where we're just like, we've been so hurt by this church or this church or this church or several different churches. They were like, I don't have the time, the patience, the mental capacity to reach out anymore. I will do this freaking on my own. I have nothing left to give to somebody else for a year or 2 years or 3 or however many years of my life to put all this effort into something, get absolutely nothing back in return other than Jesus loves you. I already know that. I know that. I need more. I need more than that. You needed more than that. We both have needed so much more than the church ever offered to us. And I think a lot of the church is lip service. Oh, we love you. We care for you. And they never show up.
You know what wouldn't be so bad is if it wasn't so much a promise of, well, you come in and we're we're the happy, loving church. We'll be there and provide needs if you need us, and da da da. And again, lots of churches are doing those things. And I've been helped by churches when I've been in need in the past. I'm not saying they don't do it, but then when they let you down mentally, how do you handle that? And again, I'm not saying that churches need to be your parents, need to be anything more than what they are, but I do think they put off this aura that they're more than what they actually are. And so people are drawn in by the aura of, look at all that we are and all that we'll add to your life. To me, I think, get ready, Christians, I'm going to piss you off. I think it's the bar for the Christians. It's a place where you meet people. It's a place where you commiserate and talk to friends. It's where you just kind of hang because it's your Christian version of going to a bar without the drinking. I guess communion, you're having the grape juice, but like, think about it that way, Brittany. It literally is. Other people go to bars and other people go to social functions and societal kind of community things. And this is all it is to a lot of people. Let me get all dressed up and look all pretty. And then I'm going to talk to so-and-so and I'm going to talk all brother with them. And they're going to brother back to me. It's just something to do. And it has nothing to do with God.
Timmy, what? Yes, that is the best analogy I've ever heard in describing the church, because you go there to find your spouse, right? It's where you got to find your husband or your wife. It's where you go to meet people. It's where you go to meet your friends. It's where you go to get fed. It's where you go to get fake therapy, right? Go get fake therapy at the bar. Wow.
Only thing it's missing is the alcohol.
You got your grape juice and your little crackers.
Juice and the cracker.
Grape juice and crackers. Oh, at the Methodist church, they give you a whole loaf of bread that you get to pick a piece off of. That sounds a little dangerous in COVID days, but.
Oh, my mama used to play organ, and when I was a kid, I would with her when she'd play for like these communion services with the Catholic Church, and yeah, they had this big thing of juice, like big grape juice thing in the thing, and then they had the bread that you would pick off, dip it down in there, and and then the priest was the one that would dip it and stick it in your mouth. So he had his fingers all over it. He's sticking that in your tongue because you go, you stick it in your mouth, and I just remember just that grape juice soaked piece of bread. I'm going, Mama, I don't want to do this anymore. Yes.
No, I'd rather than pass the cup around, man. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Ooh. Can I watch you use hand sanitizer?
Yeah. That won't fly in COVID anymore. That's right.
Right. Yeah.
So let's get to some of the things you and I talked about after last week's episode, because I know you wrote a few of them down. So just fire away at what you have.
Definitely one of the ones that I wanted to hit is the idea that God hasn't changed. I was even talking with Wildman about this right before we started, about this idea that God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I don't see that. Like, if you read the Bible and you read it through not seeing him the same, the God of the Old Testament seems extremely different to me than the God of the New Testament. It really does.
The Old Testament version of God seemed a lot angrier.
Angry, harsh. I'm going to destroy all of you.
Judgmental, yes.
Yeah, I'm going to destroy all of you because you failed. And then when you start reading the New Testament and you read Jesus, who is supposed to be man on earth, from God, saying, the Trinity is supposed to be that. He was kind and understanding and didn't care for the religious people and sat around and fed thousands of people just to be with them.
and showed grace instead of wrath. Wrath was the Old Testament. Grace and mercy became the New Testament.
Yeah, and that's why I struggle with when people say God is the same yesterday and tomorrow. He has never changed. He will always be the same. I don't see that. Like, in my opinion, and Wildman pointed this out to me, he said, you know, it seems if you read the Bible, you know, objectively, that God started out the same way that we started out parenting. Angry, mad, reactive. And then by the New Testament, God was like, ooh, let me be a little gentle. We're gonna be gentle parents now. We're gonna be understanding and kind and compassionate and give grace and mercy.
Was the crucifixion the shift to gentle parenting?
I think so.
I think that was the point where he said, you know what? I've tried wrath. I destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. I did lots of things. I destroyed the whole earth with Noah and saved just Noah and his family and on 2 by 2, blah, blah, blah. He went from that to, you know what? That's not getting your attention. I'm going to send myself down in the form of Jesus and show love and grace and mercy. And that's been the message of the Christian church ever since. So maybe the crucifixion, he's the same today, yesterday, and forever. But you're right. Like, I remember reading some of those stories from the Old Testament when I was a kid going, whoa, don't fuck with God. Like, he will strike you down.
Open up the earth. There's literally a story in the Old Testament where God opened up the earth and swallowed people. It's an actual story in the Bible. Like, there was also a part in the Old Testament that talks about if your wife cheats on you, here's this concoction that you make that she will miscarry, or you can kill her. Like, hold up, wait a minute. Let's actually look through those things. And so, like, go ahead.
You could publicly stone her.
Yes. Or your children. If they misbehaved, you could stone your children. Like, can we just think logically for 1 second? You know, like, just 1 second.
Do we really want our kids reading that? Oh my God, Mom, are you going to stone me? Can you imagine Cammie picking up a Bible that interpreted that clear enough that she understood it? She'd be like, Mom, don't stone me.
So that's where the whole, I don't believe the statement of God has never changed. But I find it beautiful if people would accept that he has. I would find that beautiful because it gives inspiration that we, in our hurt and our anger and our reactive state, that we can change and be more loving and caring. Like, I think that's beautiful. And I would much rather take that on than, oh, God's the same and he's always going to be this way. Like, that's just, I don't like that. It don't sit well with my brain, but people look and pose God as this, he doesn't have emotions and he doesn't have feelings and he's not reactive. We were literally made in his image. And so why would that make any sense that God is always happy and always calm and not reactive at all when us as human beings are made in his image and we are reactive and angry and have all of these feelings? It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I feel like those verses, like the God is the same today, yesterday, and forever, I think Christians run with those kind of out of context, not really thinking them through kind of phrases. God is love. Okay, he is. And I think he embodies that. He is love. That's what it is. But then, like, other people will say other phrases. There's so much room for man-made rules to come in and twist it, like we talked about last week, to fit the agenda of what you want to say. Again, sometimes, some contexts, that's good. Other contexts, it's like, just tell me what God meant there, or don't interpret it to say something that's not written on the page, like we talked about.
I don't mind the real life of people like, yeah, you know what? God did swallow up people. Yep. God did do that. God did do that. But look at him now. And, you said something that triggered something in me. God is love. That's a lesson that I was taught. And logically, my brain immediately goes to, well, what is love? And if you go to Corinthians, it tells us what love is. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is understanding. And so if God is love, then God is all of those things. And so if God is patient and kind and understanding and doesn't hold wrongs against you and all those things that you hear at the weddings of here's your 1 Corinthians, you know what I'm saying? If God is all of those things, then he can't be what the Christian church paints him out to be. That he's going to hate you and you're going to go to hell because you're a gay. You know, like, no, he's patient and he's understanding and he's kind. He's not rude and boastful and mean like you guys are.
Well, and if God is love and love is all those things that are in Corinthians, and I think they are, then how, and we're supposed to be like God, like Christ, how do we hold, like that 14-year-old I told you about last week that got pregnant? They ostracized that girl to no end. There was no, like, she just basically got cut off. Like, you're not allowed to be a part of the youth group. You're a second-class citizen now. And it's like, that doesn't match up with what God wrote in the Bible.
That's all we're asking here. We're asking that you, the church, have pushed so hard of what God is. And then you turn around and justify your actions by saying God is that way. But he's not. The people like me who actually have read the Bible and didn't just sit under a pastor and listen to a pastor, we see the number one, what we just pointed out, the changes in God from Old Testament to New Testament. We saw that. Number two, we saw where you told us God is love, and we saw that love is XYZ. We saw that the teachings of Jesus and who he was and how he acted, and we saw all of this, and we're not getting that within how you treat people. You know, like at the end of the last episode, we were talking about tipping. It's such a small thing. But when you go to a restaurant and you tip somebody like crap, that shows you how you treat people. How you treat the least of these, that shows your character. How you treat somebody who can't give you anything in return, that shows your character. How you treat somebody when they've hurt you and you've been broke, like that means something way greater than I'm a Christian and that means I do all the right things and I'm perfect. And it means so much more. Show me that you care. Show me. Don't tell me. I'm tired of the lip service shit. Like, show me how you feel. Don't just tell me. My door, like, my door, I have a sign that I have designed that I want to have made. A huge canvas poster is what I want. All are welcome here. I want the hearts with the transgender flag and the black, white, brown, yellow, all of that, and the gay pride flag. I want everybody is welcome in my house to have a conversation with me, even if I don't believe like you or think like you. If you're another religion, I literally welcome all people. Not judgmental. Come in my house. I love you. And it's not like I love you in spite of. No, it's I love you because of who you are. Exactly who you are.
And that's what a Christian's supposed to be. That's what God, in the form of Christ, like you said, he hung out with the people, the least of these. That's who he hung out with. By the way, I'm thinking of another one that we didn't talk about. I love when we do this and we do the show and it triggers. I want to talk about the man-made rules that we have to be all performance-driven in the praise and worship. Now, I know some churches, they need to be more performance-driven because you're like, but there's some that they have this, like, lush band. They have this nice praise team. They're,
Swift, you better sing, girl. No to the strong. Yes, girl, you better sing. To the one that endureth. Oh my. Until the end.
and it's like, I get it. You want to present kind of a nice form of worship. But to me, when the music is so perfectly sung by these people with their pinkies hanging out when they're singing, and I'm like, I'm talking about something I've seen, and it's become this kind of the cult of needing to be a famous church star. And it's just disgusting. It's one of the things when I go into a church where they have that going on, I don't feel anything but, bleh, what are you doing? Like, and you can see through it. And then they're just like, oh, have it. I'm just like, no,
Yeah.
no, you're wanting to be seen. And you're supposed to be pointing us to God, but all I can see is all your histrionics of your performance. To me, that's a huge sin. If we want to get real about it, it's a huge sin to want to put all the focus on yourself, all under the guise of I'm praising God, but that's praising you.
Yeah.
Let's get that straight. Like, that's been on my heart for years. I've always hated the performance aspect, especially in the modern Christian church with all the Christian bands. And again, if you're meaningful in your heart, great. But I know some people that have been singing on praise teams. They are dirty, rotten scoundrels in the real world. They just happen to have a gift for a voice.
Yeah, and I mean, I love that. Like when I go to a church, I prefer the band type, the black walls, the light show. I prefer that because I don't think, I don't want to sit in a pew. I was raised that way. I enjoy that when I go to a church. And so there's a difference between you and me. But I also agree that sometimes.
No, I enjoy it. I just don't enjoy when I know somebody in there, or two or three, that it's just a performance and they're not really genuine. They're doing all the, but they're not.
Because they mean
no,
it.
I love contemporary Christian music. I was a disc jockey back in the 90s with Christian music stations. So no, I love all that music. I love the Hillsong and the Chris Tomlin and the Mercy Me and all the big bands that do these songs that are sung in churches. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people that are hypocrites, and they're and it's a show. You can tell it's a show.
Okay, so I got you now. I got the vibe here. I have someone, I will not mention names because if I say it, everybody will know. There's someone that I know, we'll leave it at that, who was welcomed into this particular church. And I went to this particular church. And I know this person, like behind all the closed doors. And this person was freshly made like a leader within the church. And I'm going, really? You sure about that one? You sure? Like, I'm not judgmental. Like, people live the life they want to live. I don't care. But like this one's got like a tinge of racism. Definitely overboard on alcohol. Like, I'm drink your alcohol. I don't care. I don't care. And I don't think that alcohol is a sin. But like, there's a level. Really? This one? And then I started seeing when this person would step into the church, it was an immediate, hey, brother, how you doing? It's so good to see you. We love Jesus. And in the time, Sunday morning saint, Monday morning ain't, the definition. And I'm like, ooh, look at that performance. Yes. Let's give you an Oscar for that performance. Yeah, I really struggle with that too.
Yeah. And again, it's not all churches. I think most people that say, I've sung on praise teams. I think most people that do that, they're legit. But it's when you see the ones that you know who they are outside of the church. Don't step on a church property and be something in front of everyone. And of course, people see you. I used to sing in the choir. So when I was singing in the choir, I always worried out in public if somebody recognized, because I'm a tall guy, I stand out. If somebody recognized me and I'm doing something maybe not very Christ-like at that moment, I was always conscious of it. So I guess subconsciously it kept me from doing something too stupid in the moment. But it's just so it oozes the oozing of hypocrisy, which again I think is the major problem with the modern day Christian church and the man-made rules is stop being hypocrites. If you're claiming Christ, live like Christ. Stop being a hypocrite.
Yeah, my name on Instagram used to be Real Food, Real Life because I craved real. And I'm still very much that. And that's the whole, becoming Brittany Lee. I'm still chasing that real. I'm chasing becoming so authentic, so stupidly authentic that people are I want people to be taken aback where they're like, whoa, that's a lot. But at the same time, I want them to find the the permission, not that I have to give them permission, but that they see me being so real that they are the same way. And honestly, that's what this conversation is like to the church. If you're in the church, you're part of the church, the worship team, the pastor, if you're listening to this and maybe you feel a little bit called out, good.
Yeah.
We want you to. We want you to. And I want you to see how real and open Jimmy and I are with our experiences. And I want you to do what so many of the famous people who make mistakes have done. They take a step back and go, crap, I've made a mistake. Let me listen for a change. Let me stop barking orders. Let me stop barking my opinions. Let me take a step back and go, I'm just listening. And maybe literally, it would be picture perfect, but I don't think this could ever happen. But maybe, idealistically, you stand up at the beginning, like at the start of the church service, and instead of preaching your message, you say, I want to hear you. Let me hear you. What are your stories? How can I help you? I've actually been in a service like this before, where the pastor was like, I'm not preaching today. You guys are. What do you have to say? What's your hurt? What are you struggling with? And what we did in that church service, and it actually sparked a really cool revival that was different than I'd ever seen, where one person raised their head and said, I'm struggling with this. Another person said, me too. Another person said, me too. And he was like, you three get together in a group over here and talk about what you're going through together. And I was like, that will change lives. And it did. And it did. My life was changed that particular day. But if we had more services like that, instead of going and here's your performance of this song and here's your lesson and here's your teaching, like, let's give the people a chance to talk, and like, let's do that. Let's change that church atmosphere, be welcoming to people and understanding and not judgmental. Like, maybe we can make a difference here. Maybe that this whole becoming Brittany Lee and talking about emotions and feelings and personal development, like, it can be a part of the church. Like, I know, like, personal development is my thing. It's not for everybody. But isn't that what the church is supposed to be? Like a big box of personal development that you're continually working on yourself?
It's done well, that's for sure. This has been really good, and we're not done. We got one more, two more. What do we have left?
I've got written down everything is black and white. That was definitely something. And then I think pretty much the only other one was questioning God's the worst thing ever. But I think we kind of touched on that one a little bit. But yeah.
Oh, let me go back to one thing about the pastor who never contacted me, and I was faithful and he pretty much told everyone, because I was out of the church or whatever at the time, that I had been given over to a reprobate mind and that I'm too far gone and unsavable. Which, by the way, I got saved at 7 years old. Last time I checked, I'm still saved. I still have Christ in my heart. Because the church has been derelict in their duty because of the man-made rules and all the things we've talked about, don't just throw me away. Like, I've been a Christian since I was 7. That was 42 years ago. Am I suddenly no longer allowed? Am I Anna, where a husband of 22 plus years just ups and leaves her and she decides to go be happy again and get remarried? And she's not allowed in the church? Am I now Anna from a spiritual standpoint because you think I've been handed over to a reprobate mind? What a horrible thing to say about someone just because you don't happen to like or agree with the decision they made for themselves.
Oh, that's Church 101.
Yes.
That's Church 101. I don't agree with you, so I don't like you, and you are a reprobate mind. Like, we see that all over Facebook, Instagram, all over the places. If you do not believe like me, look like me, talk like me, act like me, you terrible. You're horrible. And you have a reprobate mind and you're unsavable. How gross is that?
Yeah.
Like, the last time I checked, everybody is savable. Everybody is able to be helped.
That is what redemption is supposed to be about. And the last time I checked, that was the whole point that Jesus died on the cross, was to redeem people. And it's not like I'm a dirty, rotten scoundrel. I just be better for my life. What?
You didn't know, Jimmy? He only saves the rich white people. Not the least of these. Not the colored. Not the ones that live in another country. Not the ones that believe differently. Not the ones who look differently or act differently or have a different sexual orientation or have different thoughts or actions. Only the rich white people. Sorry. I couldn't help it.
No, we're hitting on all the things. So, all right, I need to unheavy this because this is killing me to keep talking about this. But I think, guys, we got enough out. Hopefully, and again, thank you to everyone who had wonderful comments to share. Please keep them coming. We'd love to see more comments from you. If anything we said this week touched you, inspired you in some way, sparked a thought, please write it in the comment section or write to us in a private message. We would love to see it. But guys, that's it. Episode 27 of the One Step Deeper podcast. The problems with man-made rules of Christianity. Two-parter, and we went overtime on the second part. I knew we needed to get this out of the way because we had so much to say. We might not have said all of this had we done it sooner, but I'm glad we held off long enough. And if you were watching on Instagram and you made it over to YouTube or Facebook to finish watching, thank you for watching as much as you could on Instagram. 60 minutes, that's all they give us. I can't go more than that. So you got right at 60 minutes, and then you got the rest here. But thank you guys so much for being here today. OneStepDeeperPodcast.com is the website. Go check us out. We do debut on Sundays at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And if it's Sunday, it's like 5:20 something at this point. So it's gone long for you guys today here on YouTube premiere. We also post them over on Instagram as well as Facebook. Just look up One Step Deeper. You'll find the show on both of the social media. And, of course, on Mondays, it does air on traditional podcasts, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, and ALEXA. But, this was a marathon and a half these last 2 weeks. But I'm glad we did this. Are you glad we did this, by the way?
I am so glad that we did this, and I really hope that the offense was not great. I hope that maybe everybody got something out of it. But yeah, this was great.
We got no backlash. I was expecting, you're just fallen and you need to come back to God. Okay, maybe. But I got none of that. It was all, I'm hurting. Hear what you said. Yeah. That's got to, Christian church, that's got to wake you up. Wake up. So next week, we're going to take on a popular topic that you and I have touched on, even within the religion one, but other parts of One Step Deeper podcast. Narcissism and gaslighting, because the two go hand in hand. We're going to talk all about how to look for the signs of that, what you do about it when you're around somebody like that. Oh, guys, hold on to your hats. That's going to be a fun one. And then the week after that, we're talking about change, why it's so hard to change. And then we have a surprise the 2 weeks after that because Jimmy's going on vacation. And this little lady's going to go solo for the first time. She's a little nervous, so show her some love. But she's going to have her friend Brittany, yes, spelled the exact same way. They're going to talk about some unschooling and some of the things that you guys share in common. Parenting. Or gentle parenting. Sorry. I knew it was one of the things you're into, and I'm like, I said the wrong one, didn't I? And then, guys, the famous wild man, I hear him in the back. Hey, holla! The famous wild man is going to be on the show with Brittany, and they're going to talk about relationships here in about a month. So we got some good episodes coming up. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on this marathon One Step Deeper podcast. We promise not to go this long on every episode because I get wore out going this long. But thank you for being here today, you guys. We'll see you next week.
OneStepDeeperPodcast.com.